Hello and welcome to this short induction video to help you use the equipment here in the gym safely and effectively. There's a gym etiquette poster on the wall which details the sort of things you need to consider whilst you're in here, the main essence of which is based around being considerate to your fellow gym users. Two key points from that include the wiping down of the equipment after you've used it and the putting away of any free weight items or anything like that after you've used them, so other gym users don't trip over it. And generally trying to leave the gym in the sort of condition you'd hope to find it in when you arrived. Okay, so I will now take you through the various pieces of equipment in the gym and how to use them. Okay, so treadmill, first thing to do, obviously step up onto the belt and then attach the safety cutout clip, and that clamps onto your clothing. Obviously make sure it's securely fastened. The idea of this is that if you were to stumble or fall off the back of the belt, it cuts the belt immediately and stops you hurting yourself on it. So once you're attached, push the quick start button on the display there and it gives you a 3-second countdown before the belt begins to move. And very gradually it gets going. To increase your speed, push the plus. And to decrease, push the minus. The other thing to adjust on here is the incline, so you can do some uphill walking or jogging or something. And to do that, again, there's a plus and a minus. Push the plus, and the whole front of the machine lifts up and you literally start walking uphill. And the minus takes the incline back off. A couple of ways to stop it. There's a stop button in the middle there. And if you were to hurt yourself, there's an emergency stop button in the middle on a big red kind of button there. If you can't reach any of these, you can always straddle the belt. And to do that, you grab the sidebars, get yourself off the moving belt, and then it's much easier to push any of the stop buttons. Cross trainer, first thing to remember about this one is when you put your feet on, it will start moving. So just be a little bit careful of that, and the arms will also move. So just be careful you don't get knocked by those moving bits. Pop your feet up into the middle of the footrest and then start the whole thing moving with a skating or cross-country skiing type motion. As you get it moving, the display will charge itself up and you then push quick start. Just takes a few seconds to get going. Okay, and then it starts you up from 0 on the time. So with this one, you've got a couple of things to adjust. First one of which is the resistance on the front wheel. So you increase the resistance on the spinning wheel, and obviously that makes it much harder to move the machine. And decrease with the minus will obviously make it easier again. And you can do this exercise with no arm use. So just hold the static handles in the middle, or you can use your arms and push and pull a little bit. And in theory, this is a bit more of an all-over kind of workout. Make sure you're not too hunched over on the machine, so have a nice flat back, and away you go. Okay, rowing machine. First thing you adjust on here is the resistance, and that's governed by the fan at the front. And there's a little lever on the side that slides up and down. And if you have it between 6 and 7, then that most closely simulates outdoor rowing. So once you've set your level, you've got to pop your feet in, and your feet need to be kind of securely fastened, and the strap's got to be in the right place on your foot. So to test that, pop your foot in, and this strap should go across the last little bit of your laces, sort of the widest bit of your foot, if you like. And so that's not quite right. So to adjust that, pull this thing forward, and it just slides. It is a little bit fiddly, so you might have to sort of wiggle the slider up. Then your feet go in, and the strap goes right across the end of your laces perfectly like that, and make sure it's nice and tight because you will flex against your foot. Okay, so pop the other one in too. And obviously, again, make sure you're securely sort of strapped in. Grip for the bar. So quite naturally you would grab it in your fists, but you actually want a claw grip. So you have it in the end of your fingers like that. And that maximizes the stroke length every time you pull the bar. So claw grip like that. So now you know how you're going to hold the bar. Switch on your display, push menu in the corner, and the main display will light up. And the easiest way to get going is just to push the top one, which says just row, and then you just get started and it counts up from 0. The key one at the top is obviously the time. The one below is the speed that you would row 500 metres. So the smaller that time is, the faster you'd row 500 metres. So that's your rate indicator. Lastly, a bit of rowing technique. Claw grip as mentioned, and then you push with your legs, pull with your arms, back with your arms, back with your legs. Legs, arms, arms, legs, and a nice flat back all the way through, so you don't want to be hunched over like that. Legs, arms, arms, legs. Okay, so spin bike, a number of things to adjust on this, 2 of which need to be really left in their standard sort of general user positions. Seat distance from the handlebars, and that's adjusted with this little adjuster here, and that should be left on 5, and there's a little arrow that points to the 5, and that'll be the right setting for most gym users. Handlebar height, again, we leave that on level 5, and that's adjusted with the adjuster here. Ordinarily, when you come in here, it'll be left in this kind of default position. If it isn't, as mentioned, it is very easy just to adjust that back to 5 at the front, 5 on the slider here. Next thing, seat height, very important. To test this, sit on the saddle and lower the pedal to its lowest position, and there should just be a slight bend in the knee. That is obviously fairly bent, so I'm a little bit too low. To adjust the seat, there's another adjuster here which you unscrew and pull out, and then this slides up very easily, and then you make sure it locks back in, and then tighten that back up. It's important that you tighten that back up so there's no flexing in the seat. Then you sit back on, and now a slight bend at the leg, so I'm in the perfect seated position. Next thing to adjust on here, resistance on the wheel, and you have a plus and minus dial with the red button on there, and you just twist it. Obviously increases the resistance on the wheel, makes it harder to pedal, and loosen it makes it easier to pedal. The other thing to remember on here is when you are pedaling, there's no kind of freewheel mechanism, so when you want to stop, you have to gradually slow the pedals down, because if you suddenly try and stop, the weighted wheel will keep turning and it throws you around a little bit. 2 handle positions, upright like this, and then down in a sort of more pro cycling kind of position like this. Really, it doesn't matter which one you choose, it's whichever one is most comfortable for you, and then you're all set up and away you go. Okay, so adjustable bench in the flat position currently, and you'd leave it there for many of the exercises. You'd use it most often with the free weights on the rack behind you, and they're to be put back on there after use, obviously. So a couple of exercises would leave you needing to adjust the bench, and to do that, you pull that lever out, and it clicks in, make sure it is locked in. And if you were choosing to do the chest fly, for example, it does feel a little bit like you're slipping off the front of the bench. So in that case, you can also adjust the front and you lift that up. The other thing to remember on here is to be very familiar with the safe techniques involved in whichever exercise you have chosen, and always start with a nice light weight to begin with. And every time you've finished an exercise, please make sure you put your weights back on the rack, because other gym users might trip over them, and it's generally much safer if they're out of the way. Thanks for watching. I hope you found it useful. If you do have any further questions or require any additional information, please speak to your accommodation manager.